So, Steve, let's dive in. You ready?
Fantastic. Yeah, let's move it.
All right. So, welcome everybody. If you don't know me in this face, this is Eric Rosenberg. I'm very excited to be here with Steve Stewart. He's the guy on the other screen. Where we wanted to help get some of our FinCon friends from no podcast to their first million downloads, which I know sounds like quite a feat, but you have to start somewhere, and we have combined experience. My experience is more on the tech side of it. I have my own DJ podcast, so I've done some of the sound stuff, but Steve is definitely the expert on interviewing and getting that all recorded and getting your voice audio to the right place. So that's why we've teamed up together to share our joint expertise and get you going. So, Steve, I don't know if you have any better planned notes than I do. Would you like to get started on the tech side, or would you like me to get started there?
I've got a whole outline here that we'll be able to share in a update later as we walk people through this idea. I'm going to assume that everybody who's watching right now wants to start a podcast, or maybe they've just started one, and maybe they're looking for a couple other options on how to make it easier or more successful. Now, what I'm going to talk about, and Eric, you jump in because you might be doing a few things different than I do. I'm going to talk about how I do things. Now, I've been doing this since November 2010, so in podcasting years, this is, I'm in the middle ages here.
You're a dinosaur.
So, exactly. So there have been some changes, some updates, and I'm aware of a few of them, but I will tell you that this is just how it works for me. So there might be other options, and I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying I probably need to learn them myself. But what we can give everybody here who's watching today is a way that we know that works, and that way it's not such a big, huge, scary mystery to everybody that's around.
Definitely.
So the first thing I think everybody needs to know is, first of all, what do I need to start a podcast? Well, there's a couple pieces of equipment. First is going to be you need to have a computer. It's obvious you need to have a computer. There's so many things that a computer is used for. Obviously, there's the editing, there's the uploading, but there's the whole blog, podcast, website type thing as well. I think everybody here has a computer of their own to be able to use, so that's easy to go. Then there's recording software. Now, this is where it can go in any of, multiple different directions. The three big names of audio editing podcasting software, and we're only going to talk about audio podcasts here. Eric, I don't think we're going to talk about video podcasts, because that throws,
that's a whole nother day.
Yeah, it's a complete. It just makes everything more complicated. But for audio podcasting, there's three big daddies as far as audio editing software. There's a multiple platform one called Audacity. This is one that's been around since. This is the one I use, and it's free, Mac or PC, works either way. I've been using it since we were trying to convert vinyl over to CDs by burning them on a disc. So that's how long Audacity's been around.
I use Audacity myself as well, so there's two of us agreeing on something to start off.
Then there's one that's really popular for people who have Macs, which is GarageBand, because it comes free with your Mac. Another great, free option right there. Then there's the one that, now I haven't used this yet, but I would love to get my hands on one and try it out, is called Audition. It's one of the Adobe Suite programs that allows you to do all these other things that these other two programs probably don't do as well, but I think the first two options are pretty easy to get a hold of and to be able to learn pretty quickly. In fact, I'm going to show everybody here a little bit about how I use Audacity. So first thing is a computer, second thing is recording software, third thing is optional but highly, highly recommended, and that is with this guy. It's called a microphone. Now this one is on a boom arm. Ignore the boom arm.
Here's mine, everybody. It's a lot less fancy, but it does the trick.
Oh, you just got that hooked up to your iPhone or something? What is that?
That goes through. It's a Samson Go mic. They're about $25, $30. They're on the cheaper end, and for me it was a starter podcast mic. What's great about this one is it is great to go. So you can throw it in your pocket. It's very small. It's very portable. If I wanted to interview you at FinCon next year, I could take this, plug it into my laptop, and we're going in a few minutes.
Okay, I like that. I haven't got one of those yet. What I've used in the past, well, everybody should have a microphone built into their laptop. We don't want to use that, because when you use a laptop microphone, you're going to get all the room around, the noise around the room. There's some things that can help to dampen that, but for the most part, you're restricted to the little dot on the face of your computer. That it's not the greatest, but you could start that way if you had to. There's other ones like Eric was showing you, this little third-party microphone that plugs into something. I didn't
USB.
quite get it. Yeah, just USB.
Hmm.
There's webcam microphones. I liken that to similar to what you have on your laptop because it's going to, again, capture all of the room noise. But then there's other things like this. This is just a $50 or $60 microphone on Amazon. And what's cool about this one, and excuse me, it's going to make some noise when I do this, is on the back. I'll try to be quiet with this thing. That's not going to work. On the back, it has both the a mini USB out, so you can plug it right into a computer and record straight to Audacity, Audition, or whatever. It also has the XLR outputs, which is a more professional type looking. See if I can get it in the camera here.
We can
One of
see.
those more professional ones. So it's actually more versatile because you can use it both ways. What you've noticed is I haven't talked anything about using a mixer, because right now we don't need a mixer if it's just going to be you. And there's other options to record things, even if you're doing an interview. So there's the option of getting a mixer, but I wouldn't even go there yet. So the basic bare equipment: computer, recording software, and optional microphone. What would you add to that, Eric? Anything equipment-wise?
I think
Earbuds?
I think you're right on. I started trying to do a little with the laptop microphone, and I ran into exactly what Steve was talking about. And even with some of the higher end microphones, you have to be thoughtful about your surroundings, and you might hear a little hum in the background from my own computer. I'm going to get a better computer that doesn't have that laptop fan, but the higher quality microphones will pick up some of those more subtle sounds, and there are some filters for it, but they're made to be sensitive. So you have to really be thoughtful of those surroundings, and if the dogs start barking or if a trash truck goes by outside, if you have a really high-end microphone, you might get those sounds.
Yeah. And there are differences in microphones. Some are condenser mics. Those are the type that you want in a studio because the studio's dead silent. And then there's the dynamic mics like this, which is going to only pick up what's right in front of it. So there's a lot of different options. There's going to be people that are going to argue which one to use. You know what? Try a couple out if you get the option to play with one. And if not, just, I like this one. It's versatile. It's cheap. It's durable. I throw it in the backpack, throw it in a flight. It's no problem.
And mine, I put on my Amazon wish list as something that I might want. And my in-laws actually, my last birthday, they went through and pretty much bought me everything on my wish list, which it's
Wow.
nice to have in-laws like that. But unexpected, I had a Samsung Go mic at my door, so that was when I recorded my first podcast. So whatever it is, as Steve said, there's no right or wrong. Just start to get something. Again, better than what's built into your laptop, even if you have a Mac. You want to get something that you can plug in and it has a little more functionality. But if price scares you, mine, $25, $30, Steve, $60. You can go spend hundreds. Don't be intimidated and think you have to buy a $1,000 microphone. You can get started on the cheap, a lot cheaper than your laptop and any of that other equipment.
Yeah. My actual first, I guess you'd say, podcasting microphone was a Logitech USB headset. They had the piece here, It sounded pretty good, but it was right up against my mouth, and that's not always good either. So
You'll pick up a lot of pops and other sounds that you don't want if it's too close to your mouth.
Yes, absolutely. Dry mouth, not good. All right, I want to talk about recording software. Now, you said that you use Audacity.
I do. I have it.
Okay. All right. Let me get up, let's see, screen share. We're going to share my screen, and that will be this one. And I'll bring up Audacity. Now this is going to look very similar between, why can't I get it to open? Between the two, between the PC and the Mac version, it's going to look very similar. So that should not be a problem as far as if somebody has it now and they're like, hey, that button looks different. Don't worry about that. It's not a big deal. But this is I'm going to show people how to use it to, one, record, and two, show them how to edit a little bit.
Sounds great.
So can you see it on your screen now?
I can.
Okay. I wish had a way to zoom in, but you're just going to have to try and follow my mouse. There's a few different options on here that you need to learn how to control. It probably looks really intimidating from here, but for the most part, it's very easy. Let me reset something here real quick. All right, there we go. This over on the top left is your control bar. This is basically, stop, play, pause, and then record. Of course, the record button is the most important thing. If you're going to record right near your computer, many, many times this is what I do. If I'm in a hotel room and I'm going to work on my podcast, I just open up Audacity, hit the record button, and start speaking. And what you'll see is it's already recording what I'm saying right now. And you'll see it got quiet there. The line just got, it got very short. So this is what's called a waveform. You can kind of see the conversation in a timeline. Let me go ahead and stop that now. So what we have is when I was speaking, and you can see what I'm highlighting. This is all stuff that I was saying a few seconds ago. And then I was quiet for a bit, and then the rest. So this is pretty intuitive once you get used to it. Not a big deal. I'm going to start another recording here and show you the levels. You can see here, if you can see where my mouse is moving, these are the levels. And this is showing you if you're getting too hot. So I've got my mic set actually pretty high right now, but I'm not peaking, because if I was peaking, it would hit the very far right of this moving level. All right, let me stop that. The next things over here is just basically the volume control output to your speaker or through your headphones if you've got your headphones plugged in like I do. The input for your microphone, how loud do you want that to be? You've also got below that the settings for what resources are you going to use from your computer, because I could use just the built-in computer here, or of course I've got my ATR hooked up. I'm not sure if you guys can see it from where you're sitting, but I'm highlighting my microphone that I'm actually speaking to you on right now. Then there's a couple other things over here as well: zoom, cut, copy, paste. Those are pretty easy for you to guess what they are, just because it's universal, just like using Microsoft Word. All right, now I want to show you a couple examples of editing. What do you think, Eric? Is this going to be worth doing at all?
I think a little quick show is worthwhile, especially again for those just joining in. This is Audacity, and it is a completely free download for either PC or Mac. So that's what Steve's walking us through.
Yep. I just realized I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. Eric, I'm going to push play. You tell me if you can hear this.
Okay. I did not hear that.
That's going to be a problem. Okay.
We can talk people through what it would sound like.
Well, it's basically, I got a recording of a friend of mine. Her name is Nita, and she just recorded the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what I was going to do was, you know what? It's not going to make any sense if you can't hear it. So we're just not going to do that.
We can see where people are saying. We can see the voice signature. So if you want to show maybe how to cut out too,
right.
People can see it visually.
This is okay. We'll do a couple things here that might be able to help people as they're editing their tracks. We could put a label or a note on these tracks. So if let's say we have an interview that we're recording and we want to remember that this was a good question, or this is what that question is about. There's Control B or Command B will give you this extra. It looks like a track down below, but it actually is just a place for you to leave a note. So this is her saying the word 1. That's all it says right in there is the word 1. And what that means is everything after this, it just reminds me of what that is. And then I've got another one here. I'm going to put a note there. It's a bookmark basically. 2, 3, 4, and then you get the idea. Now let's say for whatever reason I want to take out the number, when she says the number 2. It's easy just to take your mouse, highlight what you want to take out. So I'm going to take out everything from when she started to say the word 2 up to when she starts to say the word 3. Keep in mind that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I hit the delete key, it's going to take out this section here, and everything to the right of it is going to time shift to the left. So keep an eye as I'm going to hit delete right now, and you should have seen that everything moved over to the left. So right now what this is, and it looks like it took out the bookmark, so I'm going to put another one there. This is actually that's actually her saying 3. Sorry. Let me do that again. Okay. You want to be conscious of that because if you delete things and you've got 2 different tracks, as I'm going to show you here, I'm actually recording now another track. So what you're seeing is me below that. If I delete something up here, but I don't delete what's down here, then they're going to get mixed up. In other words, if Eric and I are talking, and I stop talking and he starts talking, and I delete part of what I say, then there's going to be this big space between me finishing asking the question and Eric starting to answer. Or vice versa. I might cut out a little bit of what Eric says and he might start talking earlier on. It's just something you need to be aware of. But since I can't give you the audio playback here, I'm not going to spend any more time on this. But Audacity is very easy to learn. I'm actually creating a course on how to use Audacity, and I'm hoping to have that available here pretty soon.
Say my one big caution to keep in mind. My first time I used Audacity, I'll tell an embarrassing moment that I have not told widely before. I recorded an amazing 30-minute solo podcast just to test it out, me talking about how to deal with your own personal debts and starting a debt snowball. And I was trying to do some of that editing before I hit the save button, and I ended up losing half of my podcast recording. So save often, especially before you start editing, so you can always back up. Like the same thing with video files or even website editing. It's great to save the original source file and then make a copy of it and edit the copy, because then, worst case scenario, you can still always go back to your original.
That's a good point. We need to go through how to export. So let me go ahead and bring up that recording. Let's say that I've finished all of my editing. I've got my intro music, I've got my monologue, I've got the interview, I've got the breaks, whatever. It's all in there. When I'm ready to export, I need to share screen, don't I?
I just see your face. And it's a good face, but it's not.
Right.
It is not an exporting file.
All right. Hi, can you see Audacity again? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now on a Mac, the toolbar is always at the top. I believe sometimes Windows it's right here, but anyway, if you can't see, I'm at the top, very top of my monitor. That's where the menu bar is. And I have 2 ways to save this project. I can save the project, which is going to save it as an Audacity file. And when it saves it as an Audacity file, it keeps everything the way it looks right here. Even if you've got 20 different tracks, it's going to keep each track separate. That's good, but it's not a playable version on, on a mobile device or anything like that. So if you're completely done, and I might do that save project just to have a file to go back to in case I made a mistake or if I want to make some other changes. But if you're completely done, then it's time to export. So I just simply export it to, a folder on my desktop or something like that, and I give it the title, whatever the next episode number is, and then hit save. And what that does is it saves it as a WAV file. Now, I recommend a WAV file. Eric, I don't know what you do, but you've got these. I'm going to bring up the options here. You have these options of what you could save it to. An AIFF file. You can go right to MP3 if you have a certain encoder. It's an option for Audacity you can download. OGG files.
I actually usually go right to MP3.
You go right to MP3.
I export right into MP3, and the reason I do that is because it's a lot smaller file size, and that's ultimately what I want my my listeners to download is that MP3. If I'm recording a DJ podcast, for example, 1 hour, 320 kilobit per second recording could be it's a pretty massive file size. So I usually compress those right away.
Right, so you do it right away. I get it to MP3, but I've got a couple other steps in between. But you go right to MP3 is what you're saying?
I do.
Okay. From what I understand, and I have experienced this in the past, I don't know if it's gotten any better, but the encoder that you use with Audacity, it's called, and it's aptly named from what I understand, it's called the lame encoder. And what the lame encoder is, it's not as good of an MP3 converter as the Fraunhofer encoder. So that
And
would be
another
something. If you're doing music, I would definitely recommend trying to find something that has the Fraunhofer converter, which I have something free for you to use in
sure.
case you want to.
Actually, we had a cross. We're saying different things. So yes, I don't export from Audacity. The example I was using for a music podcast, it records it as a dot wave on my hard drive directly. I've actually had a lot of luck using iTunes as a converter for that. It's
That's
um,
exactly what I was going to say.
it's built in. You already have it for the most part. If you have a PC or if you have a Mac, it's free. It's right there, and it takes care of it for you.
Right, right. Okay. Well, good. That's what I was going to take everybody.
There you
Um, yeah.
go.
Um, one thing I didn't mention is there's other ways to record. You kind of just mentioned it. Uh, you don't have to record directly into your computer. There are other options. You can use a digital recorder like this. You could use your iPhone. I know some people just use their iPhone. And actually, if you're mobile, this thing's great. And Eric, you probably plug that thing right into here. You could use that as your microphone too.
I just need I'm an Android guy, but
Hmm.
there's a USB on the bottom, micro USB. I could convert. But actually, when you mentioned iPhone, I just read something. Chris Ducker, I know he was out at FinCon with us. He just posted how he recorded his videos on the road, and he actually said he uses an external iPhone microphone that plugs right into his iPhone, and he records that way on the road.
Probably the iRig or the iMic or something like that is what I'm guessing. Yeah. Um, then there's other options for recording as well. There's a service called Ringer, RINGR.com. And what that does is it allows you to have a conversation with somebody. It's almost like having a Skype conversation, but it's all recorded off site. And it gets uh, like on my side, I'm going to get a compressed version of your conversation. Eric, you're talking to me, I'm going to get a compressed version. If I'm recording that here, it's not going to sound as good as if you recorded your end and I recorded my end. But then we've got this complicated trying to marry them up and all that stuff. So Ringer is a new option coming out. And then, of course, there's something like this, which is a Google Hangout. Google Hangouts are great for recording podcasts, at least the interview portion. And there's ways to export the audio. We're not going to get into that. But
Another very popular option is Skype for recording an interview when you're recording somebody else as well.
right. And with Skype, there's a couple different options to record both the video and the audio that you can have separate tracks. Well, I know this is true for the Mac version, which is called Call Recorder. It's by Ecamm, Ecamm. And then there's Pamela for the PC. Now, I talked to somebody, they said that it doesn't split the tracks. I don't believe that's true, but I haven't played with Pamela yet, but I believe it probably does record me as one track, you as another track. That allows some more control as far as trying to make the sound really clear. Like right now, we're getting fan noise from Eric. If I were to
So,
take this
guys,
recording, yeah, if my dog started barking, but Eric was talking, I could take the dog barking out while I'm editing because it's on two separate tracks. That's a little more complicated than we probably need to go into, but
yes, I think that's for advanced podcasting.
yeah, it's the next step up. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back into we've recorded something, we've edited it, we're going to export it, we've got it as a WAV file. Now, what do? We can't just upload the WAV file because there's a lot of things that are missing, and like Eric was saying, it's a big honking file. We want to compress that baby. So I'm going to share my screen again. Let me get this down here, and like Eric was saying, he uses iTunes. iTunes is free, works on both the Mac and the PC. It makes it very easy to convert into an MP3. I'm going to show you how I can do that. So what I do is I have this file. Let me just bring it over. You can kind of see it over here on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm moving around here. This is just uncompressed wave. This is as good of a recording as you're going to get, but then again, it's big and clunky. We don't want to do that. So I just drag it into iTunes, or you can do the whole file, add to library, all that stuff. And you can see it's sitting here right at the top. And then in my settings, I already have it set up, but you want to make sure you have it set to where you convert a file, or let's say you put a CD in your computer and you want to put it into iTunes. This is how you set it up. On a PC, you go up to Edit and go down to Preferences, I believe it is. On a Mac, it's just iTunes and then Preferences. And what you'll get is this box with all these different options. And you want to look at, when a CD is inserted, import settings. It's the same for converting a WAV file. So I've got my import settings, import to an MP3. You can see I've got 5 different options here. So I'm going to leave it as an MP3. And it gives me a couple suggestions here, but I can also customize it to where it's whatever size I want, from 16 kilobytes all the way up to 320. Probably a good rule of thumb is anything over 100, but less than 200. That's just the easiest way to remember it. Anything over 100 or less than 200 is probably your best bet.
And I just a little thought on that. Having done the music podcast, I was saying I record at 320 kilobits all the time because that's the output that I'll use if I'm in a nightclub. I actually use the same recorder. Some DJs make their podcasts in a studio. I think it's more fun to do it in my living room or record it live in a nightclub. Wherever I am, I like to do it like I'm doing a live show, and I always record at 320 kilobits because if I'm plugged into a huge sound system, you will notice the difference on a $1 million speaker system. But most people are not listening with a $1 million speaker. They're listening with earbuds like Steve and I are wearing right now. You can see my green skull candy in right now. Or maybe they'll use the Bluetooth in their car. And that type of listening, you won't really notice the difference of 320, but you will notice if it's really, really bad. Because the bit rate is how much data comes out per second. So what Steve said, right on. If you're between the 100 and 200 range, about 128, I often use, or 192, you'll have good enough quality that people won't notice that it's bad in typical headphones or situation, but it's not gonna be a giant file size.
Right. And if it's mostly spoken word, there's almost no reason to go over 200. Now, Eric, what you're doing is different, so I agree that you want something really good.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Now, one more suggestion. What we're trying to do is with the MP3, we're trying to do a few things with it, but the biggest thing is we're trying to compress it but still make it sound good. When it's spoken word, I highly recommend, you go from either, anything between 100 and 200, like I said, but I also recommend you do mono. And the reason for that is you want it to be equal in both ears, unless you're trying to do some kind of theater of the mind thing. But if you think about it, if you're recording stereo and for whatever reason you're in one ear and your guest is in the other, some people only listen with one headphone in. Maybe they've got, they're at work and they can only keep one in because they have to be hearing for, I don't know, their boss coming down the hallway so they can stop playing, Minecraft on their computer. But if you do mono, it automatically puts them in both ears. It's equal, and it also makes the file size even a little bit smaller. So you could take that WAV file and convert it from, let's see, this is a very small file as it is. This is only 532 kilobytes because it's only 6 seconds long. But when we convert it, oh, by the way, the next step is to convert it. I just got the settings. I just showed you guys how to set up the settings in iTunes. When you're ready, I just right-click, and you get all these options here. There's going to be one right in the middle for me, at least on the Mac version. It's Create MP3 version. And as soon as I do that, it's going to compress it, change it to an MP3, and give me some more options on what I can do.
And that button's the same on the PC. You just right-click, and you'll see that drop down.
Perfect. So this changed a 532 kilobyte file to a 76 kilobyte file, and they're going to sound pretty much the same. So we just made this thing super small. So if you imagine if you've got a 500 megabyte file, you can just turn that into 76 megabytes, and that's a lot smaller. And then I just simply use this file that I've converted to do the next step. And the next step for me is I'm going to tag it. Now this is really important because you want to put your information on this file. It's just like signing your name to a letter or something like that. Put your information in there. So there's 2 ways you can do this. The simple and quick way, which is really what we're talking about doing here. One, you could tag it right here in iTunes. If you right-click and hit Get Info, you have a lot of the information available right here to be able to be edited. So I can give my file a name. So we're going to call this How to Start Podcasting Day. How about that? And then I'm going to give it the artist name. Whoops. Steve Stewart. Now let's call it Denver Eric. How about that? I like that. You can put the year in here,
I'm
track
pretty
number.
kind of a big deal.
And the album is Natural. I was just going to say Nat. And you can do all the tagging right in here. And then you can also add, there's a box here for lyrics. You could put some show notes in there. You could put some artwork by adding it here. So if you had your artwork ready to go, you could tag it here. And let me just, you know what, Eric, I don't have a picture of you, so I'm just going to have to use something of my own.
It's unfortunate for you that you don't have a picture of me around. Just
I
look
know.
at.
I can go online and get one. Anyway, there's a picture. So that actually puts it into the file now. So if I start playing it, you'll see up here, there's a picture of me. Actually, I can make it bigger by doing this. So now the file's tagged with the title, the album name. It's got the picture, all this stuff. Now we need to take this file and give it to the world. Another option you can use to tag it, and it actually gives you more options, is something called ID3 Editor. That's for the Mac, and I forget what the one is called for the PC. I think it's just MP3 Tagger or something like that.
I use the same one as you in iTunes there.
Just use it in iTunes. That's what I did for the first 100-some episodes. I think I celebrated my 100th episode by buying ID3 Editor.
Did you, for the Mac, did you find any incremental benefit to doing that? Any major benefit?
There's a couple of tagging options that I liked. It seemed to give me more control on the show notes showing up on things like iPods and iPhones. There's a little bit more options. It's only $15. I just kind of celebrated by buying it, and I thought it was a little bit easier for me to use because it also, I guess I could show you, couldn't I?
Sure.
Tell you what, let me show you. Are you watching the chat room to see if we're boring everybody to death yet?
No one's been chatting me. If you I don't know if you're watching on straight on YouTube. I don't know if I can get your chats back, but if you log into the Hangout link, if we're you can find myself on Google Plus. I posted it on my profile there. You can click through that link, and we have a live chat open. So we're excited for potential questions from people. If you can't find us that way, you can shoot me an email, and I'll check them periodically. I'll give you my personal email. I don't know if that's a good idea on YouTube. What would you do? Should I do it, Steve?
No, Eric. Eric, if you go to the YouTube, your YouTube channels where this is being broadcast, that's where the chat room's going to be. It's not going to be. This is a group chat. This is something Google's changed recently. Maybe the listeners want to know this. This group chat is just for the people in the group that are broadcasting.
Ah, learn something new every day.
Yeah, so you need to go to your YouTube channel where you're broadcasting.
I'm on my way there. It's a very good channel. I highly recommend check out my flash mob videos and the Ignite videos. They're all good.
Yes, which I'm going to be working on next week. I'll get the current Ignite videos put together pretty soon.
Thank you.
All right, let me go back to my screen sharing. You were asking about the ID3 tag editor. Here it is. And you'll see I've got all kinds of stuff. The information is all here. There's the title, the artist, the album, the year, genre, doesn't really matter. And here it's going to change it with your settings in your RSS feed, which we'll talk very briefly about in a little bit. But what's cool is it actually has a drop-down arrow which saves all of your settings. So I've got a couple different ones here that I used, and I can just quickly whip through and just hit these buttons and add my tags, my copyright, all that stuff to it, and it just change what's different today. And there's the pictures, here's the lyrics, which again is kind of like putting your show notes into your file. So that's why I use ID3 Tag Editor for. Where are we going next? We are going to see if Eric has found any chats, any questions on the YouTube channel.
I did not see any comments. Nothing yet. I got in there and checked. Yeah, so if you have questions, or if you want to give us a thumbs up, you can do that too. Then I'll. Oh wait, here there is a. I see Claire just said thanks for being here. You're welcome, Claire. Thank you for coming and listening in. I am that lady. Hello, that lady.
Hey.
One of our great speakers from Ignite, actually.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on. And here we have a question from Katie. Katie Brewer says she wanted to see if Wave was the format out of Audacity or if there was a step in between. So if we went over that briefly, Katie, but we export. Steve likes to export as a Wave, and he takes that and drops that into iTunes, and inside of iTunes converts it to an MP3. So there are options to export from Audacity. Has a handful of other options. But Steve's preference, which a lot of great sense, is to just export it as a wave. And when I use, we're talking more about spoken word here, but you could do music, you can do anything. I also usually start out with a wave and then convert it in iTunes to an MP3. So I hope that answers your question, Katie.
I could show her again if we need to. Of course, this is all on replay.
This is all saved, so anyone can go back and replay any of it as many times as you'd like. I'll see if I can cut out the first computer trying to invite Steve.
Right. All right. I'm also checking my Twitter to see if anybody said anything there. Okay, let's move on. We were talking about the next step, which is going to take that file and put it somewhere. So we've got our.
I actually have.
Yes.
I was going to say I had my website pulled up. I was going to show people where to put it on the website. And then I thought we could show them where it goes on WordPress, then how to upload it, and then how to add it into PowerPress. If you don't mind taking a slight detour.
Actually, it's in the format. It's in our outline here. It's one of the last things you can do because you got to upload it to a file server first.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then you can take it from there.
So, all right.
Get yourself a file ready.
In order.
Yeah, get yourself a file ready for Libsyn or something. Who do you use, Eric?
I've used two different services, different methods, which I'd say is probably the best option, especially if you have shared hosting. You could just your server. You can go in through the same way you'd go to edit any files using like FileZilla or something with FTP. You can just upload the file into a public HTML folder on your server, and if you have a powerful enough hosting account, that is totally fine. If you have a dedicated server for a big website, downside of that is all of those downloads. If you have a very not popular podcast, that's not really going to be a big deal. It's not going to hurt you much. But if you have 100 people streaming it simultaneously or 1,000 downloads a day, that's going to cripple your server. So for more successful, I prefer Amazon S3. That's part of the AWS Amazon Web Services package. The first year you can do it totally free. They have a first year free. And it's a little more technical to learn how to set it up, but once you've set it up, it works kind of like an FTP service. I can actually pull that up and show you guys if you want after you talk about your method, Steve. But you can upload the file there, set it as public, and then link to that file.
I haven't tried that yet, and I'm a little nervous about that because once you get popular, you're paying for all the bits that are getting downloaded, and then what do? Do you want to keep raising your bill? That's where I get a little nervous.
That's true. But I mean, if you're more popular, hopefully you can pay for it. Right? Hopefully there's revenue with it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let me show you what I do, and I'm going to give people a couple different options. There are a couple of different places you can pay to have your files stored elsewhere. And the reason why we do this is kind of like what Eric was saying. If you put this on your own server, like if you're shared hosting through Bluehost, and all of a sudden you release an episode and 1,000 people come to get your show, it's going to crash the server. You do not want that. We got the Amazon S3 option, which is going to, you're going to pay for the downloading of the bits. So if you get really popular, it's going to get to be a big bill. I've got a friend who had that problem, and once he started getting popular, he started paying $41, $45 each month. It kept getting bigger and bigger. A couple of the industry standards now are Libsyn, Libsyn. It stands for Liberated Syndication, and Blueberry, which I should probably pull them up. And these companies are just, all they do is hold your file for you, and anytime somebody requests to listen to your show, whether it's through iTunes, Stitcher, they hit the play button on your website, wherever, the file comes from these places. So those are really great options because, again, you don't want to cripple your server. You want to be able to just upload and let it go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and show everybody what it looks like when you upload a file. And I'm just going to use that little one again so we won't be taking too much time. This is Libsyn, so you're inside of my account right now. And I'm going to add a new episode.
We're not I'm not seeing your screen.
Oh, geez. Well, we might want screen share here. Let me... Smart move. Be nice if I could bring up my Chrome browser. What? This is fun. There we go. Okay, screen share. Here we go. Give it 5 seconds to show up. Okay, so this is Blueberry, and then I'm going to use the other one, Libsyn. They have packages that start for as little as $5 for 50 megabytes. The next stage up is what I get, which is $15 for 250 megabytes. If you're doing an hour-long show every week, 250 is plenty. Okay, so I'm going to add a new episode. So I've gone here under Content, Add New Episode, and I'm going to upload from my hard drive. So I'm going to add a media file. This is all pretty easy and self-explanatory. So I'm going to upload from my hard drive. Let's see, where did I do that? Here it is. There's my file. And it's not going to take long for this to upload because it's really small, but you see it says it's processing. While it's uploading, I can sit here and type in my title, my subtitle, blah, 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 show notes. I can upload a picture. I can give it a category. This is just like creating a blog post, and in this example, it actually will create a blog post, but this isn't the one you're actually going to use for your website. It's just another place to put it. And then I'm going to hit Publish. And yes, I'm publishing. And as soon as it's done publishing, oh, it's having a problem. Not sure why. Oh, I don't have anything. I don't have a title. I guess I better give it some information. So, testing 1, 2, 3. How about that? And this would be, okay. We know that Lauren Grootman's watching, so we can call it the Simple Life. I forget what the name of her show is, but I've been listening. It's really good. Trust me, Lauren. I'm watching. It's really good. So we can give it all that information. Let me see if it'll work now. Publish it. And then
Also,
this is what.
Just remember that those all those fields you fill in, and the same with the tags on the MP3 file. Those are, they seem like little details when you put them together, but for your audience, all that information you see when you're downloading the podcast, all the notes about the episode, the image, all that stuff that makes it feel nice and professional. That's what all that is. So make sure not to skip any of these steps if you want to give your listeners a great experience.
Yeah. Now, Eric, you're going to take it from here. I'm going to go and show them real quick. This first link, once you've published, it gives you these options here. This first link, if you're using WordPress and the free plugin called PowerPress, this is all you need. And this is going to then allow you to have a player on your website. It's going to allow anybody who wants to subscribe to your RSS feed, once they subscribe and you've released the episode, it's going to be available right away. Once you, well, there's one of two ways, but Eric, I'm going to let you take it from there. But this is the download link that you're going to put into WordPress in the PowerPress settings. All right, I'm going to give you back the screen.
All right. So I'll pick up and just show you guys a very quick glimpse into Amazon S3 as that other option. Just so you're aware of it and you have it. Again, Steve went through the pros and cons So when you go to AWS, you just Google Amazon AWS. You'll see. It helps if I share my screen. Um, just a moment. All right. So see my screen there. All right. So that is the
Yes.
AWS console. Kind of that's their sales page. I always use that as kind of my landing page. I never bookmark it because I'm too lazy. I just Google it every time. So you can sign up at the top right or sign in here. Um, you, as you're going through with AWS, if you ever are going to use it for anything else, I actually use it for storing videos for my flash mob company. There's a lot of different things you can do. You could actually create a WordPress instance in the cloud using AWS. There's tons of things. So if you don't know what it is, don't click on it to delete it. Don't break it. It's very easy to mess things up. But these are all the different features you can use in Amazon Web Services. S3 here on the left, that is cloud storage. It's used. AWS is used by some pretty big companies. It can scale forever. Eventually, you do pay quite a bit for that. Companies like Netflix use AWS, so it's big stuff. It can scale pretty much forever. So when you get into AWS, this is what it looks like. You have or S3. This is what it looks like. Each S3 folder. It's called a bucket. A bucket works like a folder on any website on your computer or your web hosting. You can see my different buckets here. Some I actually use for website backups. Some you can see podcasting made easy. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a few minutes. But if you want to start a new podcast and you've never done it before, you want to go create bucket. You can pick a region. Generally, your audience is probably going to be around North America if you're an English speaker. So you want to use US standard. If you know they're going to be in a very specific area, like around the Bay Area, like if you have a podcast all about San Francisco living, you might pick Northern California. If you have a podcast about drinking beer in Portland, which is where I am right now, you might pick Oregon. You get the idea for the geography, so pick US standard for most people. Your bucket name has to be unique for every single bucket ever created on S3 ever. So you can't just call it, my first bucket that probably already exists. But if you wanted to call it my excellent podcast, you can call it whatever you want. That's how you create your bucket, and it will create the bucket. There you go. My excellent podcast. So to add a file to your bucket, you can click on the bucket. You'll see that it's empty. You'll just upload, and then you drag and drop your file. So here's one of my music podcast folders. So if I wanted to upload YofiCast number 17, just drag and drop and click Start Upload. That's an 82 meg file. It'll take, with the video going on, a minute to upload, so I'm not going to go through and do that right now. But when you upload it, you will go back and show you what it looks like in a bucket. You'll have your list of files like this. You want to make that a public file so other people can download it. If you don't make it public, it's private just for you. So let's say I want to share my Ho Hey. It's an MP4 because it was a video, but if I wanted to share that, you click on Properties. And there's your link, just like Steve showed us the link to his MP3 on the last site. And that's a private link by default, so you'll want to go to Permissions. And me, I'm Eric 1985, so I can open, download, edit, do whatever I want. You can add more permissions, and I created, as you saw, everyone. So everyone can open and download, but everyone can't edit or view the permissions. But that link right there, right-click, copy link address. If you use that link, that is what you'll want to insert in well, it will be an MP3, but that's what you'll insert in WordPress to get going. Let me jump back over, see if there are any more questions.
I've been monitoring, and there's nothing right now. Well, we did somebody ask what the other services, Blueberry or Libsyn, are the two main ones I was talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, for posting that in there. So I'm going to show you guys under the covers of my DJ website where I have my existing podcast. This we're going to assume today that you know how to install a plugin. Actually, if anyone has questions about that, I can take you through the adding process. But I'll assume you know how to install a plugin. we'll log in to djyofi.com so you can see under the covers of my podcast. So I should hide my stats so you don't know how unpopular my DJ site is. um, so so
Gotta
when
release
you
more often.
yeah, I know I don't update it very often. I've been focusing more on my finance blogging. But so this is the back of WordPress. It should be familiar to most of you if you already have a blog. There's lots of different menus and options, but this one down here, PowerPress, that is the kind of the nerve center of how you create a podcast. It's from the PowerPress menu. This is the back end after you install PowerPress, and that's from Blueberry, the exact same hosting provider Steve just mentioned. They do kind of everything, and they really are a great podcasting plugin. And there's some other options out there, but this is the one that I've used since the beginning. I've had it since I think 2010 or something, 2011 when I created my first podcast episode. So it's updated a lot since then. But this is kind of what it looks like behind the scenes. There's some basic options on the landing page, but the place that you'll really want to get in is you go through these different settings menus here. So you go to basic settings. You'll choose what you want to enter when you upload your podcast. There's some iTunes specific options. There's some image options, media file options. You can add the Blueberry service right there. Rather than adding it separately and uploading like Steve just demonstrated, you can do it directly through your WordPress setup. There's some more advanced settings that you probably don't care too much about the advanced settings at this point because they're advanced. You don't necessarily need them out of the box. So once you install this, go through the basic settings. They're pretty self-explanatory. There's also an audio or video player for audio or video podcasts that you can set up for the front end of your site. So if you were to hop off right now and go to djyofi.com, you'll see a little preview this is the preview. You'll see a little player that looks kind of like this. That makes it so people can listen right on the website in addition to downloading it from iTunes or any other source. So you'll want to get that set up. You can choose a different audio player. If you're doing a video, same idea. But let's say you want to create a new podcast. You'll go in just like you're creating a new blog post. You'll enter your podcast title. Here in the main section, you can add more notes about my awesome podcast that you should all listen to. Seriously. So you can, in that, people will see on your website. It can also flow through to iTunes. That it's in your RSS feed. If you use SEO plugins, you want to set those up as well. I use Yoast SEO on a lot of my sites here. I have the Genesis, just what comes with it. We go down. It looks just like a blog post until wait a minute. Here's a new box that you've not seen before. It's your media URL box. So this box right here, well, it's not very big. That is the kind of the nerve center, the hub of where your podcast comes from. That's where you add your MP3 file. So let's actually, Steve, do you want to send me that file really quickly, and I can post that so people can see what that looks like?
Oh, you want the link? I already.
Yeah, you want to post the link in the comment? I'll copy that.
I know how to get you one quickly. Just give me a second here.
I was thinking I could. I didn't. Sorry, guys, I didn't prepare and have a link to one of my MP3s ready.
Yeah, I kind of deleted the file because it was going out through my. I've got a link to an app, so I didn't want people who are getting the RSS feed to get that file. I've almost got it.
Sure.
It is. Oh, that's not it. Doggone it.
Or you want? Actually, here's what I'll do. I'll just show someone an existing episode. So I'll go back into all posts. Again, assuming you know how to just set up a basic WordPress post. That's all pretty standard. So let's say episode 19, my last episode I posted. I'll go in and edit that. So for here, I just put a really basic description. If I'd been less lazy, I might have put a list of songs. This is a place you can put show notes or resources or links. That's
Pictures.
pictures. Yeah, anything that can go in a blog post can go in there. So I have a featured image because it's WordPress and a Genesis theme. I want that to show up. There, I did put some SEO stuff in. And if I scroll down,
You're talking to a bunch of bloggers. They already know this stuff.
yes, no, someone could be a non-blogger and join in, right?
That's
It's
true.
not there forever. So once you save and post your podcast, you'll see I just had to check that box. This is modify existing podcast episode. It's really good that's there because you can always go through and edit your show notes later. Or as a blogger, you've gone back and edited posts countless times. But when you go back to edit a podcast, this is something that's been fed out to people's iTunes feeds or one of their player of choice. Short Orange is one that I just was introduced to and kind of like. There's some frustrations. I think iTunes is still a little better, but it's Short Orange is web-based, which is kind of cool, so you can use it anywhere, even if you can't install iTunes. But back to what we were talking about. Here is where I put that link to the MP3 file, that media URL. This specific podcast, because it's not that popular, I just put it on my own server. So it's in my WP content/uploads folder. I did that because it's a public folder. You don't want to put it somewhere people can't access it. That's very important wherever you put it. As you saw when I showed you S3, I had to make those permissions public. If you use a site like Blueberry, it's already going to be public. They don't have private podcasts that I know of, or the default would be public. So you'll drop the MP3 link in that spot. You want to click this verify button right here. That will tell you how big the size is. That will tell you the length. So you can see this was a that many bytes podcast. I think it was at 83 megs. If you do the math, it will autofill the duration, which this one is 41 minutes and 43 seconds. And then when you go back to the top, I'll see the update button. When you hit publish, that's when your MP3 goes out to the world, and it is alive on your blog, and it's in your RSS feed. So that's the basics of what you do on your own blog.
Just one quick note, Eric. I want to make sure everybody's. I've done this before. Go back to your post again, and go down to where the link is. And when you were talking about entering that URL, which is basically copy paste from your Amazon S3 or Libsyn or Blueberry, you've got to hit that verify button and check to make sure that it turns green.
Yes.
Because if you forget, it won't attach to the post, and then you'll never release the episode that way. So.
I'll show you what happens. I'm not going to update right now, so you guys won't see the
you don't need to
button.
show us.
But I'll show you when you click verify. It says media verified successful, and that's when it fills in the specify boxes automatically.
Yep.
So that's how that works. I want to jump back, unshare my screen for a second. I'll see if anyone has any questions for all this. Steve has a coupon code for either Libsyn or Blueberry. If you didn't catch that, that's in the comments on the live episode right now, so you'll see that in the chat. Coupon code is SOP free, so get your first month free. Who doesn't love free stuff? If you met us at FinCon, we know you love free stuff.
Absolutely. Yep.
So from there, your podcast is live, but it's not necessarily going to be showing up in people's iTunes yet. There's a couple of steps that you should go through to get it into iTunes. So, let's see here. Okay,
Now you're talking RSS. So when we get into
Yes.
RSS, we're getting into some deep stuff. So
Yes.
what we've
So-
done essentially here, let's just recap all this before we move into the whole RSS thing, is we figured out the equipment that we need, the ways to record. I wish I could have shown a little bit more examples of editing, but hey, that's something that you'll have to learn on your own depending on what program you want to use. The important thing of exporting, converting, tagging, and then uploading to some kind of a source. I would recommend Libsyn Blueberry, or you're using Amazon S3. So if you think that that's working for you, I don't know the whole buckets thing, so that confused the heck out of me.
It's like
but
it's
but
I'm a super tech nerd, and I try to do things that are more difficult sometimes just to see if
there
I
you
can
go.
figure it out. So I actually
There you go.
tried to create a WordPress site in Amazon, and I gave up on that. But along the way, I learned a lot about S3, and because it is just so scalable, and me using it for video as well, it was worthwhile for me.
Yeah. And then the last step was to actually release the episode through your website in a blog post using that Blueberry plugin called PowerPress. Simple. It's actually that easy. And getting the RSS feed, you're going to show them how to do this? Is that what you're going to go to
I'm
next?
just gonna go through the basics.
Okay. Because once somebody subscribes through iTunes, through Stitcher, through whatever podcatching agent it is, they're basically subscribing to your RSS feed the same way they would to your blog posts. It's just that it's going to be this rich media that's only going to be playable through some kind of audio device. Eric, take it away.
Right. So a lot of people who have never had a blog or a podcast don't know much about what RSS feeds are, but every single WordPress site has one. So for djyofi.com, it's or any WordPress site, you just do yoursite.com/feed, and WordPress will automatically figure out the rest, and that is an XML feed. Now me, you can see that I have PowerPress in there, and
Eric, you
I've
want to share
actually
your screen again, please?
oh yeah, sorry, forgot to do that.
Yeah.
Screen share. All right. So sorry, I'll back up 1 second. I'll type that in again. So what I just typed in at the top, I went to djyofi.com/feed. It could be for my finance website. I'd say narrowbridge.net/feed. Any WordPress site, you can just do /feed, and your XML RSS feed will show up. So in this case, I have it redirected. I'm using a service called FeedBurner. There is some mixed love in the world for FeedBurner right now. It's owned. It used to be its own company. Now it's owned by Google, and it has gotten less and less love over time. So there's a lot less people leaning on FeedBurner than they used to. But FeedBurner, as Steve said, has some of those rich media options that you can add more and do different syndication. That is totally not necessary to do this by any means. It's just an option. Actually, you can see my little FeedBurner icon right there. Um,
May I jump in and give everybody their three major options they can pick from?
sure.
Okay. FeedBurner is one. Obviously, you're showing us how to do that. That's easy. Though I had a problem with FeedBurner in November, and my podcast wouldn't update anymore. It just was dead. So what I did was I ended up starting to use my own feed, which is actually something that PowerPress will assign for you, and it's in your settings. Do you want to? Are you still on with your website or?
I turned off my screen so you can share away.
Okay, then let me do that. I'll just show everybody where it is. I don't want to take up too much time here because this is not that important. But there's a distinction between these two ways that I'm going to show you. If I can get them to come up. Okay, with PowerPress, come on, PowerPress. All right, well, this isn't working very well. In the settings of PowerPress, once you set it up, and the setup doesn't take that much doing, but it will give you an RSS feed, which that thing is what you copy, paste, and send to whoever you're going to have, feed your podcast out to the world. Okay, here we go, finally. So right here under feeds, this is one of those options. Podcast feeds, this is it right here. This is my podcast only feed. And that's assigned to my website. Now the important thing to remember here is that when it's assigned to your website like this, iTunes will not see it, Stitcher won't see it, nobody will see it until you released your blog post. Let me clarify. You're going to give this to iTunes. Once they accept it, then you're listed. But then when you release a new episode, you could upload your file to Libsyn and release it there, but nobody will see it until you release your blog post. Now, Libsyn also gives you an option for an RSS feed in their settings, and to be honest, I forget where it is. But then they've got a feed that you could use as well, and it's not anywhere that I know it is. Anyway, if you were to use Libsyn's feed, then once you release an episode here, then it goes live to the world. It's not dependent on your website. So there's a big distinction between the two ways. If you use the feed from your own website or from FeedBurner, it's all dependent on when you release your episode on your website, because you might schedule your post to come out on Wednesdays, but you record it on Mondays or whatever. Whereas with Libsyn, once it's live on Libsyn, it's live everywhere, which also you can schedule as well, but it depends on how you want to handle it. So that's just something I wanted to make sure that everybody knew.
Sure. And for those who are iPod or podcast listeners, if you use iTunes or whatever service you choose as a podcatcher to listen, you can always go find that feed URL for a site you really like. If you can't find the subscribe on iTunes button very easily, and you can copy that link and paste it into your subscribe box in iTunes to subscribe to a new podcast. I believe it's under advanced. Subscribe manually to a podcast feed. You can just paste that feed. So if you went to my djofee.com/feed, you could just type that in on iTunes, skip going through the store, and it will be right there. And where that is really useful for a new podcaster to know before you get into the iTunes store, which it's not snapping your finger and you're just instantly there. You can share that feed link with everybody, and once you're accepted into the store, that doesn't change. That's still your RSS feed. So any new subscriber you can send through that link, even when you're brand new. So if your mom's the first person that wants to listen to your podcast, like, oh look, my son or daughter's on the internet, you can hear them. It is so cool. They want to share it with their friends over a Maj game. You give them that feed URL, and they can subscribe using that. So really what I want also, so if you do decide to go with FeedBurner, after hearing Steve's problem and knowing what Google's doing with FeedBurner, I might shy away from that if you're starting out new. But if you do decide to use it, they make it pretty easy for podcasters. When you submit your feed, when you log in, there's a box that says, I want to burn this feed right now. You type your feed, yoursite.com/feed into that box, and there's a checkbox that says, I am a podcaster. If you check that box, they pretty much take care of the rest of the rich media content for you. If you don't check that box, they'll think it's a text feed. So you want to make sure to check that. So really the place that I wanted to leave you, I will share my screen again for just a moment. Getting into the iTunes store is, Apple's kind of a mystery to a lot of people. But Apple does tell you right here how to do it, how to submit a podcast. You have to have iTunes already. So you want to open up iTunes, you follow the steps here. If you just Google, how do I submit a podcast in iTunes, it'll take you there. Before you do that, you want to make sure you have all of those tags that Steve showed earlier all set up right, because they will index those tags. That's how you're searched for. That's part of how they approve. They know that you're a quality podcaster creating a good product. You also want to have your image, which is very important. It's if you scroll through the iTunes store, the first thing you see, they say don't judge a book by its cover, but we do anyway. The same thing goes with podcasts. You're listening to it for 20 minutes to an hour or 2 hours. There's some epic podcasts that are 4 hours. If you just were scrolling through and saw Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, 4 hours long, based on the picture alone, you wouldn't know that's such an amazing thing. But having listened to it, it's pretty great. So you want to make sure you have a really great image that shows off your podcast and what you're all about. And you want to make sure it's the right size for iTunes. They've changed that since I started. The file size has to be bigger. But rule of thumb, it just has to be a square image, and I believe, if I remember right, 1,600 pixels wide and tall.
Minimum 1,400 by 1,400, maximum 2,000 something or other square.
There we go. So 1,400 minimum. When I started, there weren't really 1,400
Yeah.
wide screens anywhere. So, and when I had my first one, if it were more than 800 wide, it would go over any screen anywhere. So I think mine was 400 by 400 when I started. I had to up that since, which is another reminder as you go. Keep up to date with best practices, what iTunes asks for and demands of you. It's like anything else, WordPress versions upgrade, your podcasting plugin upgrades. Things change over time. You want to stay on the cutting edge of that, so you don't end up with a problem one day where you hit publish and it's not out there for everybody, and you might not even know. You might think it's out there, but it's not really in the iTunes store. So I always want to stay on top of that. So Steve just put in the chat bar, and I'll say out loud, does anyone have any questions before we start to wrap up? This is your 100% free all-access moment. Ask us almost anything, mostly about podcasting, please.
No, I think we covered a lot of it as far as getting from start to upload and available. By the way, as a side note, PowerPress has an actual link inside of the PowerPress plugin. It's a link right to publish a podcast on iTunes. So that makes it easier for people to be able to just click on that link. It takes them right to the page they need to fill out, put their RSS feed in there, a little bit of information, and then just wait for them to approve it.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any other questions. So, Steve, you want to, so we're here giving this to you for free. You can come back, re-listen anytime, but we're not 100% charitable. We have to throw in our little plugs at the end. Steve, I'll tip my hat to you to go first if you'd like.
Well, thank you. If anybody wants to check out my podcast, and you can always see what it looks like on my site, you go to moneyplansos.com. I also have a screen tutorial course on how to create screen tutorials, screen capture software called ScreenFlow, and you can find that at howtousescreenflow.com.
Great. And for me, I'm actually in the process right now of giving you all of this information, plus a heck of a lot more in a more in-depth course, which is going to be released through narrowbridgemedia.com, the place that you went to sign up to get the email with the link to this podcast today. I've already recorded the first two sessions, which for most of you, being a blogger, are going to be a little elementary on how to get a domain name. And I'm going from the roots, how to get a domain, how to set up hosting for the first time, how to install WordPress. Those are already out there and available for people who sign up. I'm adding more to go all the way through the end, getting accepted into iTunes, how to deal with keeping your podcast maintained, and really to help you focus on the nuts and bolts, the mechanical, technical stuff behind the podcast. Because what's great about podcasting is everyone has their own style. If I listen to Steve's podcast, he has a very different interviewing style than if I listen to Pat Flynn's podcast or Chris Ducker's podcast or people that have nothing to do with the personal finance world, any of their podcasts. I really like the Adam and Dr. Drew show, if you remember them from the Loveline days. They have one of the biggest podcasts out in the iTunes store, and it's just mostly them just chatting, and it's hilarious. So there's lots of ways to do it. I'm not going to tell you how to record and how to be yourself, but I will help you get that on the internet. And I have a coupon code I'll email out to all the people who signed up for this class for half off on the first month. It's going to be, I'm still working on the final details, probably about $30, so $15 off. You get it for $15 for the first few people to be my guinea pigs. And of course, I'm always there by email, and you can ask me questions. So that's it for me. Anything else from you, Steve?
No, sir. Just somebody needs to get out there and start a podcast and send us a link.
Yes, please do. Please, send it, email it to both of us. We have contact forms on our website, or you can tweet us. I'm Denver Eric on Twitter. Steve, you're
Moneyplan SOS.
I always just type your name. Moneyplan SOS. I always type
Moneyplan SOS.
Yes, so Moneyplan SOS, Denver Eric. We'd love to see what you're doing and help you spread the word on your new success. And well, now it's It's 7:23 my time, so if you're on the Pacific time, it's still not too late to record an hour-long episode and be in bed by 9. So get started, and well, thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks.